see you, Jimmy, all right? I once knew a midget called Bridget, and she didn't disappoint. The moral of the story is, you got a small one, it can still do the job. And talking about small ones, here they are. Loads of little ones on the table. And why are you doing this? Well, you should know, you should have watched the last few videos. It is the Tribit. Tribit. I don't think they've actually thought this through. As far as I know, it's supposed to be Tribit, as in try the beats. But it's more, if that's try, then it's try bit and try a bit of the music maybe. I don't know, I've forgotten what they told me, but I'm pretty sure they said it's supposed to be sounding like try the beat, try beat. I've seen another channel say, no, it's try bit, but all we know for sure it's supposed to be try. But a lot of us still are saying Tribit, and I still love to say Tribit. So we're going to use the terms interchangeably. So we got the Tribit Xsound Plus, which was the follow-up to the Tribit Maxsound Plus. There's been 3 versions. The first version was version 1, and version 2 was what they call the upgraded version, and version 3 was what they called Thunderbox Plus. It's had many names. It's been very, very confusing, but whatever you get, it looks like that. It looks like that, which is not exactly like that. Not like that, like that. And do you know what I'm talking about? No, nobody does. It's slightly different on top, but it's different on top, she said, but do you know what we haven't got that we got on the Tribit Stormbox Micro and the Tribit Stormbox Flow? Some white lettering so we could actually tell where we are with the controls. But obviously, that's going to add to the cost. I assume that's why they didn't do it. You said to me out, and I said, what? And after you explained what you actually want me to do, somebody else said, what about comparing it against the Tribit Stormbox Flow? And somebody else said, what about the Soundcore Motion 300? And then nobody said, what about the Mifa Wildrod? But do you know what? I think it's in the same class. I'm sticking that one in anyway. Yes, she said, the Soundcore Boost version 2, upgraded version. And what I'm saying is they're all around the same price, around the same size, and you've asked about them, so I'm going to do them all in one video. But oh, that's going to be really, really long, she said. And when have I been known to do anything but long videos? The actual speaker that started the ball rolling, the lovely neutral sounding Tribit Maxsound Plus. The problem is we love that because it was really, really neutral, a little bit bass shy, but you know the audiophiles love a light bass because they call it neutral. It ain't neutral, but it's kind of overall neutral. You can hear details in it because it's not being overwhelmed by any of the bass, and it's quite clear, but actually it's tuned on the bright side. It's neutral-ish, and as neutral-ish as you're going to get in a speaker, that price, that size. Along come Tribit Xsound Plus 2. I know I said Tribit, and I'm just going to stick to it because to me, I'll always know it as a Tribit. And the problem was they seemed to have no idea why we loved the first one, and they've gone for a big hefty V shape. This seems to be their new tuning because it was exactly the same on the Tribit Stormbox Flow. And by the way, we complained it was distorting as you turned up the volume on certain tracks on the Flow because they pushed the bass too far. They've immediately fixed it in a firmware, and then do you know what they did? I think last week they stuck it all back. So the latest firmware, if you don't know, it's on my Instagram. The latest firmware update adds a bit more bass, both to X bass on and X bass off. So we're kind of back to square one, depending on how heavy your bass tracks are, how loud you are playing it. It's still going to do that. And by the way, so does the Motion 300 in its what they call extra bass mode. That will also distort, but not on every track. So a lot of people will never hear that. But obviously when you're testing these speakers and you use certain test tracks because you know they have a hard time dealing with it, these two do have a hard time dealing with it as you push the volumes because the bass has been pushed very heavily. Saying these are the ones you wanted to hear and all make sense because as I sit here today, did I? Yes, I did. I'm almost organised. What the hell has gone wrong? All around, they range from 48 quid, $50 to 65 quid, which is the British pounds, $70, all around the same sort of price, all around the same weight. They range in weight from the lightest being, surprisingly, the newest one being, and is it because we've got a neodymium magnet now and we had ferrites or something before? But anyway, the lightest at 590 grams, and by far the chunkiest and heaviest, 775 grams, but still basically only, you know, like 200 grams in it, which is significant for speakers this size when you've got one in each hand. She said, blah, blah, blah. I'm gonna keep doing it, she said. Where was it? Oh yeah, and you feel the difference. This is definitely a very chunky speaker. You know, we talk about it, oh, they've cloned the Bose Flex, SoundLink Flex. Well, that's a lot bigger, actually, than the SoundLink Flex. Another one that obviously taken on the SoundLink Flex and the Motion 300, because they seem to be pricing it to basically undercut by £1 or $1, the Motion 300, is, of course, the Tribit Stormbox Flow. So, all about the same price, kind of the same weight, just know that's the heaviest. The Xsound Plus is the lightest. My £50 champion has always been the Soundcore Boost, upgraded version 2, because I love a lovely, warm, rounded bass rather than a tight, sharpish bass, which is like more upper bass slanted. But hey, it's got 2 full range drivers, and it's a bit muddy because of the impressive amount of bass, and you can really push it. And by the way, if you're at low volumes on certain tracks, that bass is going to pump. For me, on the tracks I play and the volumes I play, never been a major problem, unless I actually go to the specific tracks that people are having issues with. But you ain't going to beat the bass on that at the size and price. And that's why it's been my £50-ish, $ish champion. But hey, I've had to use a V-shaped tuning on it because otherwise it's very muddy, and it's still muddy. But hey, I'm not saying that's a perfect tuning. Now, this is all about, I've retuned my Tribit Xsound Plus 2. I had a kind of neutralish tuning, but it was quick and it was down and it was dirty in version 1. I've taken more time now. This is pretty neutral now, my tuning. The biggest issue is you can't fill out the 150 hertz upper bass region for a few reasons. Notably, if you push it, it sounds quite nasty because it can't really handle that much bass. I did push it in that first video just to flatten it out, but it does sound nasty. I'm keeping that where it should be, which is at 0. Well, if you didn't know, here it is. I'll put it on the screen, but there it is. It's on my table. So that's a problem area because a lot of the bands that they've got do overlap. You start trying to fix one area, and the other area has gone. And the other problem is you push just one area, and it will affect, if you're pushing highs, it will affect the bass, will affect the balance, and vice versa. So it's a bit fiddly, but I'm really happy with that. Just know it does involve a lack of upper bass because it doesn't gel with the speaker. It sounds nasty and it will distort. And the 13 kilohertz as low as I can go, because they've got a 12 kilohertz peak that's baked in. And using their app, you can do nothing about it. So kind of each side, but overall, pretty neutral to me. And preferring it now over the Maxsound, which now sounds a bit thin and was always bass light. That does fill in some of that deeper midish bass, not really deep bass. I've talked a lot over the years. I've talked a lot in this video. Didn't even time myself, but what are we going to do now? We're going to have a listen to them. Have I got any preamble notes just to say, other than, obviously, this is now with the Tribit Stormbox Flow. Trigger warning, I have picked up the Motion 300 by mistake. Yes, I do make mistakes, and that ain't going to change. Back with its very V-shape and very pushed, which they obviously like to do, whoever's tuning their speakers now, because that's, you know, it was the same on the Xsound Plus, still on the Xsound Plus in its X-bass mode, but I'm going to do this at 60% with my personal EQ. Just know if you use their V-shape, you may prefer it. It will certainly be a lot more sizzly and a lot more bass heavy, but you'll lose a ton of definition, clarity, because the bass will be gone. It's gone next door and it's saying goodbye forever. What else did I say? That's basically it. Just note it's with the new 1.3.0 firmware on the Flow. Right. I'm going to do all of them, one by one against the Xsound Plus. So it's going to be about 5 minutes long, the music track. don't complain, it's the same track. It's the easiest way for me to be able to compare all of them together at the end. And then we're going to talk about it at the end. And then I'm going to come back and give you some subjective opinion after giving you my objective view.
we go strong. I see a boy who missed his home run. Boo-hoo, you can miss me with that shit. I think of you when I'm intoxicated. I don't know why I get frustrated. I bet I was on your mind last night we fell by your side. Oh, you can't deny. I bet you wish it's you and I can see that you still try. Oh, your sweetest dream, but only in your memory.
EQ'd Xsound Plus 2. So this is going to be a lot less V-shaped than default on Xsound Plus 2 compared to the Maxsound Plus with its X-Bass mode. From 500 Hz down, it fills in lower mids and the mid-bass. Considerably more mid-bass headroom on the Xsound Plus 2 than you get on Maxsound Plus. And the Maxsound Plus has a bit more of a pushed high end than the Xsound Plus with my personal EQ. In terms of mids, they are pretty similar outside of those lower mids. Versus the Boost, well, the Boost with my custom EQ, very, very V-shaped. Hands up, I admit what I've done here, and that's because the nature of the Boost is very heavy on the deeper bass. There's no tweeters, and I feel you have to push the high end to balance out the sound somewhat. So the more natural tuning my EQ on the Xsound compared to the way I've gone on the Soundcore Boost. And so the overall balance between the two is very different. It's a V-shaped versus a more balanced EQ. Surprisingly, the flow in its default mode, in X-Bass mode, which is quite a heavy bass push, is almost in line with the Xsound Plus till about 90 Hz and down, where it does have very heavy bass and goes much deeper. The flip side of that is you've got a lack of mids and you've got a more of a pushed high end, so it's more V-shaped on the flow. Against the Motion 300, closer than I was expecting, much closer. Actually, in terms of that mid-bass, it's stronger on the Xsound, even with my reduced mid-bass in my EQ. But the Motion 300 simply goes deeper, it's capable of a fuller bass, and elsewhere, pretty similar really, bit more of a pushed high end for the Motion 300. Against the Wildrod, although the Wildrod does go deeper, it's a subdued bass, so it's not very dynamic. On a bass heavy track like I've used for my testing purposes, it cannot match that deeper bass. But what it can do is carry on playing to lower parts of the bass where the Xsound Plus 2 simply cannot go. Otherwise, it's a pretty balanced speaker. Its downside is it's got a heavy roll-off from 10 kHz and down, so you're going to miss a bit of air, a bit of ambience from that. In terms of which speakers now are the best balanced, which might not even be what you want, pretty balanced now, the Xsound Plus with my personal EQ. Unfortunately, you cannot do anything about that high-end 12 kHz peak. It's baked in. I've actually got the 13 kHz slider at minimum, and we've still got a big peak there. Nothing you can do, but otherwise you can really balance the sound out. But the other weak area is the upper bass, around the 150 Hz mark. And the problem is, it sounds nasty if you push it, but you can't push it without pushing also some of the deeper bass, some of the lower mids. So you can't really balance the sound out and fill out that 150 Hz area. The Maxsound Plus X-Bass mode, very balanced speaker, except it is bass light. You can see it can't match the original track all the way from 500 Hz and down, and it does have a very big peak. Again, it must be a Tribit signature because that's 12 kHz peak there, and we saw that on the Xsound Plus as well. Soundcore Boost, yes, with my personal EQ, is very heavy, V-shaped. The thing is, it does deep bass for a small speaker really, really well. If you want to make the most of that, you push the bass, and you're going to have to push the highs to balance it out, and it's still a bit muddy. Anyway, the Tribit Flow in its X-Bass mode, default mode, reasonably balanced, but still V-shaped. You've got a lack of mids, and the highs are pushed a little bit beyond neutral, natural, more than the Xsound Plus once you've EQ'd it. But what it can do is impressive deep bass. It's actually almost matching that deep bass of this very bass heavy track till 70 Hz. And that's pretty impressive for a small speaker. The Motion 300, overall reasonably neutral, but yes, the high end push is not natural at all. And again, lack of lower mids, and the roll off in terms of the original track, around 85 Hz. And that's a quicker roll off than we saw on the Flow. The Wildrod against the original track, reasonably balanced, but it's bass light, 200 Hz and down. It can't match the original track in any way, but it can go on playing a bit deeper than some of the other speakers. But you will notice a lack of bass weight. And again, lower mids, pretty subdued. But overall, it's not too bad at all. Putting it all together, to overlay all of them, I will point out this is a very expanded frequency chart here. So what may look like big differences aren't. For instance, the big dominant peak in the bass is for the Soundcore Boost, but it's really around minus 42.5 dB down to about 45.5 dB. So that's around a 3 decibel difference. I mean, it's big, but it's not as huge as you may think looking quickly at this chart. But what does stand out is the massive peak for the Boost. Yes, that I've put that in my EQ, but hey, that's there anyway, even in default. And in terms of who keeps going on the longest in terms of that deeper bass, it's actually the Tribit Flow, more deep bass than the Motion 300 at these volumes, which is also behind the Soundcore Boost. The Xsound Plus holding up pretty well till you're hitting around 80 hertz. That's when you see its big roll off. And the only one with less bass after that, of course, is the Maxsound Plus in its X bass mode, which is a bit bass light, but that helps give it a clearer sound. So very, very interesting because, first of all, note, depending on how dynamic their bass can go, I deliberately use heavily push bass tracks and try and keep the rest reasonably level up, right up into the very high end, because I want to push it where it's going to fall into, where it's going to have issues with those, where the issues are with the speaker. If you don't play tracks that are that bass heavy, some of these speakers that can't match the bass will be able to match the bass, and some of them that appear pushed won't be that pushed on flattish tracks. Remember, bass is quite dynamic on these speakers, and the limiters will not let it go too far. So I just did one track there where they're going to be quite dynamic to match that bass. So, whereas the Maxsound Plus couldn't handle it, in its bass light, on lighter tracks, even though they're being extended with the bass, it will do a better job. So what's interesting, but keeping that in mind, where the speakers drop off in terms of it can no longer match the bass of that particular track, coming out best is the flow going down to 62 hertz before any roll off, because it's heavily pushed and can do it without too much distortion on that particular track, or on other tracks it will distort, followed by the Boost at 68 hertz, and the Xsound Plus 2 doing quite well, 83 hertz. Surprisingly, about the same area before rolling off as the Motion 300. Really poor on that particular test. So Wildrod at 200 hertz and the Maxsound Plus 500 hertz. They can't dynamically match that heavy bass. But then, if you actually, when you measure frequency response, and he talks about we like it to be within the industry standard, plus or minus 3 dB, right across the track, the frequency response. That's what is determined. Even and with smoothing, I think normally a third of an octave smoothing, plus or minus 3 decibels. That smoothing is all important, by the way. I'm using 1/6 of an octave for my smoothing, and with that, how far down until it hits level 0 on that line that we're talking about, that we don't want to go more than plus or minus 3 dB outside of, is a bit of a different result, because we can still go down to 48 hertz on the flow, and that's really impressive. But it's heavily boosted. The Motion, then it's the boost, the very heavy boost of the sound, the very heavy boost on the Boost, 51 hertz, followed by now the Wildrod. See, the Wildrod was kind of already dipping from 200 hertz down, which is poor, but hey, it's holding an even keel, so it's still going down to 56 hertz. So if you were just talking about how far down does it go, and still being on that line, we'd say 56 hertz, but actually it's turning off from 200 hertz. So I'm just saying a different result, followed by the Xsound Plus at 65 hertz, and the Maxsound Plus, the worst of all, down to 75 hertz. Now, I know I've just bored you shitless. I'm just saying these are the interesting things for me, and I know there's only a limit to what I can put in, and some things I don't agree with that you asked me to put in, because these are Bluetooth speakers. These are not proper hi-fi gear. The other takeaway is, overall, who am I saying are the most balanced? despite being on the bright side, it is the Motion 300 and it is the Tribit Xsound Plus with my neutralish EQ. I'm quite happy with it now, and it's not distorting, you know, until you really, really push it. Bear in mind, that's EQ'd at 60%, and if you're like a 30% or 90%, there are adjustments you're going to need to make because of how it changes its sound at every frequency, at every volume step. So I know it's ridiculously long. That's just what we do. Nothing I can do about it. But against the Maxsound Plus, to me, it's now the winner. Before we were saying, well, that was clearer and that's V-shaped, blah, blah. With a proper EQ, I'm saying proper for us. Well, for me, for me, I prefer that because it's fuller. I think it's smoother because that's still got the bigger boost at the high end. Remember, app support, no app support on the Maxsound Plus. So yeah, prefer it against the Maxsound Plus. Then against the Boost is going to come off. It's very muddy necessarily because of the mids, and that's my particular tuning. But it wouldn't be that much different actually in default. It's just more V-shaped with my tuning, because otherwise the amount of impressive bass, lovely, warm, smooth, rounded bass, just makes it muddy against when it's tuned to be balanced, like I've done with Maxsound Plus. So you're going to prefer that if you want a lovely deep bass heavy sound. You're going to prefer that if you want more balance overall and a bit more clarity. By the way, that still comes off as clearer because it's bass light. Obviously, the more bass you got, the more it smothers the other frequencies. So that will still come off as clearer against that. But I do prefer that because it's fuller. Against the Flow. Well, that was against the Flow, which is the interesting one for me. I kind of had written off in my head, but actually pretty impressive. Remember, this is a mono speaker, whereas that one is a stereo speaker with 2 full-range drivers, and this has got 1 driver. And you do hear, because of the V-shape that they've baked into this, along with the fact it's mono, it's going to come off as dull. To my ears, I like a stereo sound. By the way, that's the only way you get the original mix. By the way, Brian still mentioned something to me in the chat in the last video that was confusing me, because it wasn't in context. And Brian, if you're watching, if you're not watching, why not? And it doesn't matter what I'm saying. So he was saying the issue, you know, mono speaker playing a stereo track, what's going to happen? It's going to be down mixed. The stereo gets down mixed to mono. That's not a particularly easy thing to do, because if it's badly down mixed, you get lots of cancellation, you get cone filtering and stuff like that, because baked into the stereo is differences in the left and the right. So he was saying, how do they balance anything? You see, you've got 6 dB in the lows gain, but this is the thing, and at 3 dB in the highs, which I've got confusing. And I need to see the context of that. The context of what he was saying. You read it somewhere. What I think he's saying is when left and right channels match, so something's panned to the middle. And this is the thing. I can't remember in the mix. Everything gets panned, and they get using filters and effects all over the place. But here's the thing. They know, lots of people, in a club or something like that, everything is down mixed to mono. Everything is played in mono. They're aware of that. Part of the mixing is making sure, is listening to it to the mono mix and making sure the main elements of the track are in the mix. But you will lose a lot of the original mix, including the widening of it, when they pan things off far left, far right, and actually just use tricks like phase shift, phasing it a little bit differently so it sounds bigger than it is. You completely lose that in a mono speaker. So if it's already V-shaped and it's not very clear at the high end, then it's going to come off as even duller. And I'm saying that's what happens. That's what I'm finding now, because they pushed it again in the bass in its default tuning. Yes, I could retune that. I just haven't taken the time to do that as I have with that because. Hey, the Maxsound Plus has been a go-to speaker. What was I saying all that for? Oh yeah, because Brian had said something. I'm still confused about. I think it was slightly out of context in what he was saying or what he's read. I may be completely wrong. I'm just trying to grasp, because yes, there is a 6 dB gain when left and right are exactly the same. But then you said the highs, so I was a little bit confused. I'm thinking the main takeaway is when you say how are they balancing that in the mono mix. Well, they're not doing what they're doing. So a lot of the stuff is actually cancelled. You don't hear it because of the imbalance between left and right. A lot of the mix of that, where the frequencies will actually cancel out. Like I'm talking about the comb filtering, you won't hear it at all on a mono speaker, especially if it's not up and down mixed, in a particularly good manner. So that's the thing. Not everything is a gain. A lot of it is actually like a zero, or it's lost altogether because completely each side has cancelled each other. Just know in the main mix, in the main mono mix, they just make sure it sounds basically like it should, but you will lose a lot of elements. This is the Motion 300. This has been closer than I was expecting. Remember, Motion 300 got the 2 full-range drivers. I've written the Xsound Plus comes off as sounding cleaner and more neutral, and it is. The Motion 300, yes, sounds warmer, smoother, and deeper, but without the upper bass thump. So it's even though there's a lack of upper bass, that's how the speaker itself characteristically sounds. It sounds more upper bassy, although it's not. That's one of the reasons why it sounds nasty when you actually push that upper bass. Maybe that's deliberately why it's baked in with a dip at 150 hertz. But the Motion 300 does go 10, as I was saying before, 10 hertz deeper if we're actually looking at a flat line across the middle of that track, the recording of that track. So it goes a lot deeper, but it's to me again, it sounds less clear than the Xsound. So all of this stuff is taste. I think all these speakers can do a job. Against the Wildrod, it can do the job, but as we saw, it's got a very subdued bass. So if you've got bass-heavy tracks, it's not going to thump all the way down, thump all that. But it can go reasonably deep. Remember, this is another mono speaker. And by the way, I think it was a bit one-sided, wasn't it, on my recording because I didn't center it properly. I think I forgot where the actual. We've got a woofer and we've got a tweeter. So it's mono, but a separated woofer and tweeter. But it's tailing off rapidly from 10. So it has a big roll off at the high end. 10 kilohertz is quite early to be rolling off steeply when you've got a tweeter. To me, that's quite weird, but it can do a job. And hey, it's the only one on the table that's got lights. So it does come off a bit duller because of that high-end roll-off, because it's mono as well. But the differences are not huge, she said. I want to see what the actual headroom is compared. All of these tracks, the actual headroom, maximum volume, balls out to the wall, bum, 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 go. Probably less between these than you might have thought, certainly than I thought. I thought the Motion 300 would hold up better than it really did, because until around the 90 hertz mark, it's the Stormbox Flow that dominates in terms of bass. It is the Stormbox Flow that goes the loudest, not in terms of peaks, but overall LUFS, the overall nailers throughout the track, that's the greatest on the Stormbox Flow. In terms of the peak, that does go to the Motion 300, and its extra high end, I assume, is what gives it a bit more of a peak. The only one really lost at this point is the Maxsound Plus. It's got a kind of roll off from 700 hertz and down. I mean, you can see the orange line, it's a mile behind all the other speakers in terms of lower mids, upper bass. The Xsound Plus 2 now in its default mode. The purple line, it's holding up much better than I had expected against the other speakers. Again, only till you hit the deeper bass does it really roll off rapidly, and it's behind the other speakers. But if we look at it and say around the 100 hertz mark, remember this is all rolled off. All of the bass on all these speakers is rolled off. But at around the 100 hertz mark, it's still in front of the Soundcore Boost, the Mifa Wildrod, and of course the Maxsound Plus. And actually, the higher end of the upper bass and the lower mids, it's only the Stormbox Flow that's beating out the Xsound Plus. Again, closer than I was expecting, other than we know the Maxsound Plus didn't go loud, and it sounds really nasty because of the massive drop-off. It can't do bass at all. Massive drop-off. I'm going to put that on the side because you ain't going to get that speaker to play it at louder volumes. So that was the only one that's really out of it. Other than also the Soundcore Boost, which is particularly muddy at maximum volume. I put them back all into default mode because even though we pushed in the app the EQ, it will still start limiting. So normally you get the most headroom when you want bass in the mix as well. We're using their default tuning, the bass heavy tunings. That's what I've gone with. So again, not great for maximum volume. Doesn't go that loud. Does hold on to bass, but it sounds very, very muddy because it's trying to hold on to that bass admirably, thingamajiggy. Thought the Xsound Plus held up well, but hey, there's a lot of distortion going on. But it's a little thing, and it's very V-shaped, and it's got that baked-in 12 kilohertz peak. It's the highest peak of all of them there, that you can't do nothing about if using their app. I'm only using built-in apps, because any other app you risk smashing your speaker to pieces, because you're battling their limiters at the end of the day when you push wrong areas. The one that goes the deepest was the Motion 300, so it's for me it does distort in bass mode, extra bass mode as they call it, when you push it, but on certain tracks. But more tracks than say the Boost will have issues with its pumping. But again, ignoring if you can the distortion that's there. It's holding up quite well against them. So at the end of the day, they're all pretty similar, other than the other specs will be different. So we talk, all about the same price and size-ish. What about the battery hour? Well, the biggest battery on the table is the 24.1 watt hours of the Motion 300, and the others are all in the same ballpark, but the Tribit Maxsound Plus, the version 2, the oldest one, the smallest at 16.3 watt hours. So not much in it, other than head and shoulders, the best battery is the Motion 300. And by the way, it's the only one that does the exotic codec of the LDAC, as well as an AAC and SBC. So you've got good codec support there, whereas all the others are SBC, while the Tribit Stormbox Flow and Xsound Plus will do AAC, and then the others are all SBC, all Bluetooth 5.3, except for the Soundcore Boost. Obviously, it's quite old at version 5, and the Maxsound Plus, obviously old, version 5. All do true stereo pairing, except for the Mifa Wildrod. It'll do party mode, it won't do stereo mode, as far as I know. All got USB-C connections, only the old Maxsound Plus and the new Xsound Plus. So only the Xsound is plus, the Maxsound Plus and the Xsound Plus. Anyway, get it out, spit it out, she said. Shouldn't have said that one. Yeah, so they're the only ones with an auxiliary input. Can all be used as a power bank except for the Motion 300. So, got lots of features, can't use it as a power bank. They don't care about these things, do they? And the Stormbox Flow, you can't use it as a power bank if you've got less than 50% battery. The only one that can't be used to make phone calls is the Mifa Wildrod. But hey, it's the only one that's got lights, and it's the only one that's got a slot for a little flash card, micro SD card, and you can play straight off the speaker itself. In terms of the power, 30 watts for Mifa Wildrod, 20 watts for the Soundcore Boost, 30 watts for the Motion 300, 24 watts for the Maxsound Plus, 25 watts for the Stormbox Flow, and 30 watts for the Xsound Plus. all IPX7, but Mifa Wildrod and Tribit Stormbox Flow also have IP67, so it's also dust-proof. Just again, mono with a separate woofer and tweeter, 2 full-range drivers, 2 full-range drivers, 1 full-range driver, 2 full-range drivers, 2 full-range drivers. Hope you know what I'm talking about with speakers as I pick them up. Only one speaker on this table has titanium drivers. We love titanium drivers. All of them, every one of them, no matter what codec you use, are absolutely crap for streaming. And even the auxiliary port on the only 2 speakers that have an auxiliary port, which is the Xsound Plus 2 and the Maxsound Plus, still have a lag, but 16 milliseconds is almost nothing, whereas that's still 160 milliseconds, and that's also crap. In terms of app support, no app support for the Mifa Wildrod, no app support for the Maxsound Plus. But all the others that I didn't mention there have a 9-band graphic equalizer, and the Soundcore Motion 300 takes it even further by adding a parametric sort of option on their equalizer. That's a wrap. That's a long video. This is Alan Ross Reviews. That's what we do. And I thank you for watching. If indeed you watched, you may have accidentally come to the end of the video without realising what the video was. Anyway, see you in the next video. Thank you for watching.
What the f was that?
It comes from China.
My speaker's got deep bass, balanced mids, and a bright high.
Yes, mine sounds exactly the same.